Hello everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at deploying our Rails apps to 3 different locations. One's going to be railway.app, the next one's going to be technically fly.io, and then we're going to take a look at render.com. We covered deploying each of these in a recent Twitch stream. If you're interested in following along while I learn how to do this stuff live, feel free to check out twitch.tv/deanout. Link in the video description or the pinned comment or wherever I put it. But we went through and we tried each one of these services. Now, me personally, I always prefer to just do a bare metal deploy. These services are nice, but I always feel like there's like too much extra domain specific stuff that I have to figure out how to make work. That said, I'm always curious to hear what your thoughts are. So if you prefer one of these over the other, or if you prefer manually deploying, leave a comment down below and then people can, sort of see what the general consensus is. I personally think FlyIO out of these 3 is probably going to be the winner, but we should still take a look at everything. So in terms of Railway, this is the first one we're going to deploy with. They're currently having an outage, which isn't the best look. It looks like something's broken on their end, but we'll take a look at this nonetheless. You come over here to railway.app/new. You can deploy a template, and then you can just search for Rails. And they have a simple Rails app here. You can click on this to deploy it, and then it'll ask you to name your GitHub repository. Now, because they have an outage right now, it's kind of hard for me to do this in a serious capacity. So what we're going to do is we're going to pretend that I hit deploy, and we're going to go over to an actual deployed app, and I'm going to show you what I did after this. So you hit deploy after you name your GitHub repo. You then get a repo that looks like this, the Railway video right here, where you get a basic README. It tells you how to use the app, and then it has a bunch of basic Rails files in it. So if we come over to our Railway dashboard right here, and you go to your project. So if we come up here, you have your dashboard, you click on your project, it takes you here. So it deploys with a Redis, a Postgres, and a Rails server here. And then in terms of our Rails app, there's a couple things that we need to actually change. So the first thing, when we actually run this, if I run a code dot, when you first open up the application, you won't notice it, but you'll kind of notice it. It deploys a development Rails app, not a production one. So you then have to go through and configure it to run in production. So there's a couple steps we have to do there. First, we have to come into our config, and you're not going to have this master key. Because the master key was created on the Railway app, it does not get pushed to your Rails GitHub repo, so you won't have it, which means you can't access the credentials.yaml, you can't modify the credentials. So the first thing you want to do is grab the credentials and delete them. You go ahead and delete those. And then you can say, all right, I have this master key right here that gets generated after I run a command like this. It's the editor equals quotes code space dot space dash dash wait, Rails credentials edit. You run this, it'll then create your credentials file and your master key if you don't have one. At this point, you now have your secret key base. But the issue is you now have a master key on your local machine that your server doesn't know about. So we have to sync these. So we're going to copy this master key. And then you're going to, if I full screen this, you're going to come over to your Railway app. You're going to click on the Rails thing, go over to variables. And then in here, right now, I already have a Rails master key, but you're going to click on new variable. So I'm actually going to delete this Rails master key. And we'll just say new variable, Rails _ master _ key, just like this. And then you're going to just paste this in. Click add. I already have this, but we'll go ahead and we'll override it anyways. We now have a new master key. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2, you'll notice it's running in development. If you actually check, the way you can check is generate a controller with Rails G controller pages home, for example. And then in your views, your pages and your home page, you can just put something like this that says you are running in rails.env mode. This will tell you you are running in development mode. We want this to say production when we eventually push. So what we're going to do, and as for these posts here, this is the scaffold. I just did Rails G scaffold post title with a body of type text, just something to test with. But to change this to production, we have to come into our proc file. And this proc file by default is going to look like this. You're going to have a rake db migrate, and then you're going to have a bin /rails server -b 0.0 whatever, port whatever. Instead, we need this to be a Rails env equals production bin /rails server whatever. So if you just add Rails env equals production after the double ampersands, this will then turn this into a production command. It'll then run in production. At this point, you now have your master key copied up and you're running it in production. You're pretty much good to go. So then what you need to do is actually link up your Railway app, which you can just do by running, I think it's npmi space -g at railway/CLI to install your Railway CLI. There's a couple other ways to do it. And then if you run Railway, you should hopefully see a menu here that tells you what you can do. So then you just want to run Railway link, and then you can select your project. Although you should be good to just select or to have it link the first time. I'm running it here a second time because again, I've already deployed it. And once you've selected it, it should say you're now linked. If you're not already logged in, you might have to run a Railway login command, which will say, do you want to open the browser? Here, because I'm using WSL, you would think this would be really weird. But actually, if I just control click this, it'll open it up and I can just hit verify. And then I'm already logged in. It's that simple, even in WSL, to just log in real quick, which is really nice. But at this point, you can then do a Railway link again, and then you should be good to deploy your app. Final step is to just do a git at dot, git commit. I'll just do this, git status real quick. Git commit -m. I don't know, updated settings. And then you would do a git push. Once you push this, it's going, and I'm not going to push this because if I push this, it'll fire up a new update. But you push this up to your GitHub repo. This then changes. And then your Railway app sees, oh, I have a new thing that's been pushed to the repository right here, variable changed. And in that case, that means, okay, I need to redeploy, and it'll start the deploy process. Right now, because of this weird outage or whatever, this is taking upwards of 13 to 15 minutes. On stream yesterday, it took like 8 minutes for this to finish. But once it's done, you can click on this, and you'll see you have this green text. You can click on the green text, takes you to the home page right here. It says you're running in production mode, and then I can go over to /posts to go over to the post page and just create a post. And there you go. You're now deployed to Railway, and you can just edit your local file, push your changes as needed, and you're up and running. So that's option one, is Railway. Now for the other two, I don't know if these are also going to be down. I really hope they're not, but we're going to go ahead and try them out. So first we want to sign in with FlyIO. Okay, so now we're logged in. We're going to go ahead and click launch an app. We're going to launch a Rails app. That's going to take us to a README screen here. In this case, we have to create the app ourselves, but that's totally fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Rails new FlyIO. We're going to say -c tailwind, and we're going to do -d of PostgreSQL, just like that. And then we're good to go. The next thing that we're going to have to do is set up our FlyIO app. So if you're not familiar with this, we'll just go ahead and run through this real quick. We have to go to the FlyIO getting started page somewhere to add the CLI, which is going to be this installation page. So this is on docs/hands-on/install FlyCTL. So you either brew install it or you curl it. If you're on Linux, you're going to have to curl it like I am, and then we're good to go there. So for example, you would run this command. Now this command will install it. However, you will not have access to it yet. In the case of, if you want access to it, you then have to add these things to your bash RC. So if we come in here, I'm just going to copy this real quick. We run this. And I don't know if it's going to give us the error, but I guess not. So what you then have to do, if you're using bash, you're going to have to do like a sudo nano, what is it? It's a ~/.bash rc. And then enter your sudo password. You either come in here, or if you're using like ZSH, you come in here to ZSH, and then you have to add these two lines: export flyctl_install equals /home/dean. So this is your user /.fly, and then your other one is your $flyctl_install /bin : $path. You have to add these two. It should be put into your terminal once you run that command, and then you just hit Control-O and Control-X to save that. At that point, you should be able to run your fly commands. Again, it'll show you something like this. So now that we're in the FlyIO running Postgres and Tailwind, we can go ahead and open up this app and come back to the getting started with Rails section. So in here, what they do is they just generate a quick little controller. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say Rails G controller pages home, and then we're going to do a Rails G scaffold, just like last time, of post title body text. I'll say I trust these authors. Okay, so we've done that. Now what we want to do is run a fly launch. So we're going to go ahead and hit Control L. Sorry, we have to do a fly login. Same thing as last time, where we have to actually make sure that we're logged into our app. So if I come back over to that page I was just on, it should hopefully show us. After you do this, if this is your first time, you then have to sign in right here, sign into FlyIO. You want to run fly auth login. So we're going to run fly auth login. This is like the other one. You have to come in here and control click this URL to open this in the browser, or you can just copy this one into the browser. So we're going to control click this. It'll then ask me if I want to continue. I'm going to say, yes, I want to continue. And now I'm connected. Super smooth, super easy, even in WSL. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we can do our getting started stuff where they say to run a fly launch. So we'll run fly launch. It'll detect that this is a Rails app, and then we can go ahead and run in here real quick. So you can see it's a Rails app. We're creating the FlyIO inside of this app. Here's what you're getting. You're getting a name, a region of Chicago, shared CPU, whatever. We're not using Redis, but we are using Postgres. So it detects all that for us. So it asks, do you want to tweak these settings? I'm going to say no, and then hit enter. And then the name was already taken. So I'm going to run this again and maybe change the name. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to tweak this. And then it gives me another link. So I can click on this link. It takes me in the browser. Again, happening in WSL. But I want to change this. I want to say FlyIO-video. Like that. FlyIO-video or -Rails-video or something. Then we scroll down here and we're going to have our database, which is our Postgres DB. I'm going to change this one to FlyIO-Rails-video-db. So it's just the same name as the app, but -db, right? And then we should be good to go here. Then go ahead and click confirm settings. And now it says it's launched. And now it just goes through and it configures this for you. So this is super easy. So it's provisioning one of the 3 machines with the image. And it's just going to set everything up for us. This will take a minute the first time, but this is a significantly faster like redeploy process, which is really nice. And then this goes through and it does everything for you. The last one, which we can take a look at while this is running through, is going to be our Railway, or not our Railway, our render app, which is over here, render.com. So this one is similar to the others. They all seem to have some type of free tier that you can go ahead and play with. There's also a concern, or if you are concerned about like uptimes or anything like that, there is a, what is it? Open status, I think is the page. We'll just take a look at this real quick while that's running. We have a results. So this is for a uptime for FlyIO right here. See 100 uptime. We have Railway at 99.991, and then we have Render at 99.89. And you can see the different like failed pings and all the other stats here if you're interested. So this is openstatus.dev for the monitoring latency CF workers. So this is also something to take into consideration is like your uptime across all these different services might vary even depending on which one you use. So it might not just be a monetary consideration. You might also want to consider like your uptime. But okay, your app is now prepared for deployment. Once you're ready, just run fly deploy. So we're going to go ahead and run that. We're going to say fly deploy. It verifies, it validates, it builds the image, and then it says it's done. Now it's doing a Docker build. Because again, we have a Docker file right here. We also have a fly.toml if you want to come in and configure any of these settings. So here's all of your fly.toml settings that are set up for you, which again allows you to tweak all of this stuff as needed. So the longest step here is going to be your Docker process probably. At least it was, I think during the stream, that was where we spent most of our time was waiting for the Docker build process. Once this is done, you largely just have your dev environment set up. And again, because everything's running through Docker, this is a much better solution. At least in my eyes, I think this is a better solution. But again, you can see here, these docs, the like Fly documentation is specifically geared towards doing a Rails app, whereas on like Railway, that was just a user created template, I think. So there it's more from a user's perspective as opposed to the company has actually set up everything to make it work as smoothly as possible. So maybe you have like a better experience here just because of this. But this takes a minute. It runs through, it sets everything up. And then if you come over to your FlyIO dashboard, we can come over to apps. You can see we have fly-rails-db already up. And now we're just waiting for fly-rails-video to pop up right here. So we can come into this one. And we can see that this one was released less than a minute ago. And if we come over to like our metrics or our activity or something, you can see we don't even have any data here yet. This will take a minute the first time. After that, it should be pretty much good to go. And then if you ever want to visit the actual app, you can see right here you have the host name, which is FlyIO-Rails-video, which is the name of our app, .fly.dev. And then you can like check this out by going to this URL right here. And you can see this one right here says it doesn't exist yet, but that's because we didn't actually set a root for our app. If we go to /pages/home, you can see we have it /pages/home already. We can also go to /posts, and we have that as well. We can come in here and say test in case, and that's creating the post, and that's being stored in our DB as needed, right? So although the initial page is throwing an error, it's only throwing an error because I didn't come in here and config the routes like I did in the other app. But aside from that, everything here is working. If we come into like our config and our database.yaml, you can see here our database is FlyIO development, FlyIO test, and then this is FlyIO production, which is using the FlyIO database password. All that other stuff is set up for us. We're using Postgres for all of these. So that's already set up out of the box, which is really nice. Okay, and then the last one, because now we've covered FlyIO, we've covered the Railway app. Let's go over to wherever render is, because I'm sort of getting lost here. Now in our dashboard, we want to create a new web service. So we're going to click on new web service. And you can see here, you can build and deploy from a Git repository, or you can deploy an existing image from a registry. So you either create a new app and push it up, or you deploy an existing image from the registry. In our case, we're going to build and deploy from Git, and we can connect to a Git repository. So here, again, it's pretty much the same thing. If I come down here to the render demo we used, we can click on this and connect to the render demo. It's going to be called render demo. It's in Oregon. Sure, why not? I really don't care. The root is just blank. Runtime is Docker. We'll go over to the free tier. And then we need a environment variable here that's optional. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to clone this Railway repo. So we'll go over to my GitHub page, come over to repositories. We have not Railway. I keep saying that render repo. Come over to the render repo. And you can see here, I just did a couple changes. We'll take a look at what those are. I'll go ahead and copy this and I'll say git clone this repo. I don't normally like doing this, but it's like you get 2 or 3 deployments into a video and it just becomes like a case of I don't remember what all I did in all of these things. So we'll just take a look at all of them step by step. Okay, so over here for the, where is it? The render dashboard. It's asking us for the environment variables. And then we can cd into render_demo and run a code dot, just like this. Let me close out this one right here. Open up a code dot again to check this one out in VS Code. Okay, so in here, we're gonna have our config and we're gonna have our environment variables, our credentials. We don't have a master key again. So first step, editor equals code dot space -- wait, Rails credentials : edit, just like before. We're gonna be doing the same thing. We're gonna run this. Now it's gonna say, I created a config master key. Couldn't decrypt this credentials. Perhaps you passed the wrong key. I didn't, I just created a new key. So let's delete these credentials. And then let's run this command again. It'll create a new credentials file. That'll then ask us to edit it. And now we have a secret key base in here. So we're back up to square one. Let's close this. Let's come in here. Let's copy this key, come over here, paste it into the value, and then say Rails _master _key. Just like before, again, you can go to Google, search for Rails master key. You'll find this Rails _master _key result. Maybe not in Stack Overflow, but you get the idea. So we do this, and then we say, all right, this is what I need. And then I can say add environment variable, or I can just leave it like that. At this point, we're now on the free tier. We have our env set up. Let's go ahead and let's create the web service. And this will take a minute to run. Now, again, this is actually, I'm going to cancel this deploy. So the first thing we did over here was we actually tried to get this to persist. But persistence isn't going to work unless you set up an entire separate Postgres database. So in this case, I think I made this without Postgres. So this isn't going to persist between changes. So if you want to persist this, you're going to have to also come over here and do a new Postgres DB. And then you're going to have to hook up your config database.yaml to use this Postgres DB, similar to how the FlyIO one set it up for us. Which, I mean, if you want to take a look at that, you can come over to like Deanin, come over to repositories, and you can come over to the FlyIO demo, wherever that one may be. I don't even think I have it. But basically you just come in here, you set this up to point to your Railway or your render apps Postgres instance, and then that'll be good. In this case, we can just go ahead and check this out and see how this works, but we do have to push up our new environment variable. So we can do a git add dot, git commit -m, update credentials, git push, that'll push it up. That'll go over to our GitHub repo. That comes over here. And then here, what we want to do now is say manual deploy the latest commit, which should no longer be mess with colors. It should now be that update credentials commit. So here you're manually clicking this deploy and you're making sure this works. This will then run through and do all of that stuff for you. Now, if you want to try to mount a volume, you can always do this in your Docker file. Just be warned that mounting the volume here, because it's going into the same like server that's being reset every time you deploy, that's not going to work. If you want this to persist, there's another way to do it on this server so that your volume here persists across deployments like this without using like a Postgres setup. You can actually go over to the upgrade your instance page right here. And if you go over to the $7 a month one, I think this one has support for persistent disks. So this means every time you deploy, then if you have a volume, that'll stay on your server and you won't have to like, your data won't get wiped every time you deploy. So this is more a consequence of just being on the absolute free tier here, as opposed to being on the $7 a month package. This is gonna run through. It'll finish its deploying and whatever. But there's one other thing I want to point out. We've talked about, you know, Kamal and DigitalOcean on this channel before, where you can spin something up for like $6 a month. But there's actually another service called Contabo.com. So Contabo has like a $5 a month hosting fee. You get four vCPU cores, 6 gigs of RAM, around a 400 gigabyte SSD or 100 gigabyte NVMe, 32 terabytes of traffic. So this is a bare metal machine. And the only thing you're really looking at here is $550 a month. And then there's like a one-time setup fee of $550. So the monthly, in my case, because the best region is US Central, is going to be another 95 cents. So it's $645 a month, sorry. But for this price, you're looking at something that's comparable to the other options. But I mean, look at how much better this machine is. So this is something else to consider, is like how much you're getting for your buck. If you go with Kamal and you deploy to something like this, you're basically getting a similar experience to what these offer, but look at the like improvement to your system. You could reasonably run the same thing these services are running here, and then also just run like 18 Minecraft servers for your friends on here. These servers alone, if I wanted to run like the equivalent from like a Minecraft hosting company, would probably be like $25. So I would definitely shop around and consider if it's not worth it to do that little bit of extra work to get this up and running on like a bare metal machine as opposed to one of these services. Because although they're nice, when you look at like the upgrade fees and the cost to leave these services and like the, you know, the specific information you have to learn to use these, you might feel a bit more flexible on one of those, one of these plans instead, where you get like a actual machine that you can just use. But okay, this is now up and running. I'll get off my soapbox. We can click on this. Takes us to the front page of the internet, new post, test, and case. Again, this is using the Tailwind stuff from Rails. It's not the prettiest app, but you get the idea. So we've now deployed to Render, we've deployed to FlyIO, and we've deployed to Railway. And we've also talked about like DigitalOcean or Contabo with Kamal, which there's videos on YouTube about how to deploy with Kamal. And that's going to be the same for all of these. You just have to change the IP address. So yeah, this is effectively some of your options. It's not all of your options, but I just thought it'd be good to go through and do a couple of them so that you can see sort of what the process is like. Again, you could do a video on each of these where you deploy from scratch. They all have their pros and cons, but you're looking at like, you know, an hour's worth of videos covering all of these different topics. So I think this is just a good way for you to see kind of what the basic workflow is like, where two of them tend to be like, you know, run from their dashboard, and then Fly is more, you just run the command in your terminal and it kind of preps your application based on what it looks like, and then it goes from there. But anyways, again, we recorded all of this over on twitch.tv/Deanout, so if you want to, feel free to go check it out. But for now, thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.